Your host, Professor Tuck. And it looks like we have our guest who has arrived. I hope I've added him. There we go. All right. Hi and welcome, everyone. I am your host, Professor Tuck. And we've got Andrew Funk from Homeless Entrepreneur with us. You guys have probably seen us talk a few times over the years. I've been working with this program for quite some time. For those of us that are functional homeless that need programs and services that will actually help us and assist us, programs like Homeless Entrepreneur, they're rare, but they are out there. And I'd like to introduce to you Andrew Funk. Hi, Andrew. How are you?
Good. How you doing, Todd? Great to see you. Looking good.
Definitely ditto. So you're walking from Zurich, Switzerland to Davos, Switzerland, correct?
Yes, sir.
And so what is the reason for going to Davos?
Well, this is the third year we've walked there. We've been going to Davos for the World Economic Forum, which I think is infamous in your community, right? Since
Mm-hmm.
2018. And we went there initially because my father was complaining about some of the world leaders. And he
Mm-hmm.
said, I don't understand why anybody listens to these people at the World Economic Forum. And I said, what's that? So I checked it out. I got a flight and I went. And we've been going since 2018 every year, except for when COVID made that impossible. And when we first went, if you Google searched WEF or Davos and homelessness, there were zero search results. We've changed
Mm-hmm.
that. And we've been getting the homeless community, especially the kind of people that want to be active working citizens. I think that's something you touch upon a lot, functional homelessness, and giving them a voice of the opportunity. So I'm with Mulai, who's here. He's
Hey,
from
what's up, man?
Hey, hello. What's your name? I don't speak English.
His English is limited, but he's from Western Sahara, so he was actually born in a homeless situation in a refugee camp. And then he was adopted at 7 in Spain. And then he experienced homelessness in Barcelona, and he entered the program, and he's coming with us to represent the homeless individuals that want to be active working citizens. Yeah, yeah.
Furthering the cause to either awareness of homelessness, how is it received, and kind of like how are you treated when you talk about the homeless issue in
I mean, at
Davos?
the beginning, it was a bit complicated, right? Like, but we
Mm-hmm.
were there's a guy named Aaron Duta. He used to be a CTO of Cisco, and he opened up, his arms and helped us meet people in the community there, which was really helpful. But the reality is, nobody was speaking about it, and not until the annual report in January 2025 did the word homelessness even enter their report, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we've been pushing very hard to get it into the conversation, and we will be doing that this year as well. So we also give out these beanies and try not to get hit by semis on the way there. So we give out beanies normally between 40 to 100 each year to get the conversation going, raise awareness as well. And anyone from like Jimmy Wales from Wikipedia always
Mm-hmm.
has their beanie, and he says his kids love it. It's about creating human connectivity with people that are there, getting the conversation going. Last year, we brought a sculpture that was accepted by the mayor of Davos. So we were able to place that
Mm-hmm.
at the Culture Plaza, and we gave a presentation in the street as well. So it's progressed. There's a lot to do, Tuck, as you know, but it's about being consistent and people getting to know you and supporting what you do. So even on the walk we're doing today, this is the first day of what we do. And I actually ran into this old guy with this really old pug, right? And I ran into him the same place I ran into him last year. And he's like, how you doing? And I'm like, whoa, this is like deja vu. So the reality is we're building community. People care about what we're doing and they're supporting it. And it's just really important to get the conversation going and open up doors for people that want to be active working citizens and contribute to society.
Now, I know you only got a few more minutes left, so I want to ask you a couple more questions. So, what's the biggest myth people believe about homeless people that hurts homeless people the most?
Well, I think everybody thinks they're just a bunch of drug addicts strung out with schizophrenia, right? So
Okay.
obviously, there are people that have issues with mental health and substance, but that would be, in my opinion, with the data we have, that's the loud minority, right? So the functional homeless community would be the silent majority, and I think that does a lot of damage. So with press and how they talk about homelessness and the way that they approach it doesn't really add much value, in my opinion, and that's
Hmm.
why. Hello, hello. Um, so I think what you do is amazing, Tuck, and I think we do our best to change the way people see homelessness and see them as people and how they can then participate in society.
Okay. Well, that's good. And my final question, because I know you got to go, is how do systems fail people before they even end up on the street?
Say that again.
How does the system fail us as individuals before we end up even on the street? Like, how is the system contributing to homelessness?
Well, I would say by investing so much in assistance-based solutions
What
instead
do
of
you mean?
helping people, the way that they invest in helping people that are at risk and those that are experiencing homelessness. So the structure could be improved. So I think one of the biggest issues that we have with the system is, I'll give you a good example to give you a symbolic explanation. One of the first homeless entrepreneur we helped, his name was Marco. He was a poet. We helped him get off the street. He published a book of poetry, and we were in the street promoting his book. He was looking good. He had a clean shave, a little bit shorter beard than yours. He was looking good, and he
I
had
know
a
this
nice
story.
hat
Yeah.
on, looking good, feeling good. Nobody would stop and listen to him. He got upset. He took his shirt off, he spit on it, threw it on the ground, got it dirty on his feet, put it on. Within a minute, people stopped to see how he was doing, if he needed help. And I think the biggest problem is when people are starting to look good and feel good, and I think you know something about this too, that's when you don't get the help. And that's when you need the most help to get out of there. So what happens, it creates this cyclical pattern that doesn't allow people to get out and only perpetuates the homeless service solutions that are provided to justify more investment in that.
Okay, so what you're saying is because we fail to address the initial problem, which is the stabilization after the emergency, is that we're actually creating the system to become big. Now, does Europe do point in time counts?
Yeah, yeah, they're
How are
called
you guys
recounts.
doing? Are you guys doing an uptick? Because I know we're just doing ours this month.
It's terrible. I mean, I let me be nice about this. I think it's great that there's effort to progress. I think it's ridiculous that every city and country does it on a different day. It's not coordinated, and it would be like, "Hey, Tuck, how you feeling today?" You're like, "I'm feeling great." Okay, we did a recount. Tuck is feeling great in 2026, right? So it also it's not consistent. One day is not representative. And the other thing too is the most homeless individuals, to my understanding, don't see any value communicating and letting the government know their situation, which means there's a huge disconnect, right? So I think it needs to be more with real time and more like partnership instead of you giving a user something that they need as a quick fix and then you being in charge of the source. I don't know if that makes sense,
So
Tuck, but
you said something about the homeless not even feeling like the need to even talk to government about the issue. Why do you think that's
they
there?
don't want to tell their names. I mean, I was speaking with an organization that we're collaborating with, and they do the recount. We spoke about this today in Zurich, and
Hmm.
they can't ask them their real name when they're doing the recount. So they're like, "What's your name?" Peter. Okay, Peter. Right. So
Hmm.
people don't feel like their data's safe. They don't feel like the agency that's asking them can be trusted, and to a certain extent, they don't feel like they're receiving proper benefits. So I think that's a huge problem when there's mistrust and people don't feel like they're working together.
Okay. Yeah, I could definitely see that. I don't know. I see the opposite, but I guess I'm a different cut, but I've always been politically motivated. But so how many you guys will be there on the what 18th or 19th?
Well, we get there this Sunday. I believe that's the 18th.
Hmm.
And the World Economic Forum starts on the 19th.
Okay, and that's a week long.
Well, we're always there from Monday to Thursday. It's until Friday, but like most events, like the last day is just kind of fizzling. So,
Okay.
but it'll
Well,
be
we
interesting
will
this
have.
year because there are a few people that are going this year that weren't there last year.
Okay. Well, after we're gonna have to figure out a way to have another one of these interviews
Yeah,
after
of course.
you're done, because I'd like to get an update on what happened at the World Economic Forum and get your ideas on like, because I mean this affects global policy and global politics, and
Yeah.
as from a homeless vantage point, it'd be nice to kind of know what they got coming because they're changing what they're changing. What was it? You gave me the three stages of poor. It was you're poor, I can't remember what the other word was, and then you're
Yeah.
homeless, and
Yeah.
they're changing that. So,
Yeah. I mean, I
um,
remember when we spoke, and the term homelessness wasn't a preferred terminology. They preferred precarious. So I've never heard a homeless person saying, "I'm feeling pretty precarious today. I don't know about you." So um, even that shows the disconnect. And many times, um, you know, I don't want to be rude, but it's like there's an expression in Texas: if it looks like shit and smells like shit, it's probably shit, right? So I think we can't be afraid to call something by the name. And I also think that we need to be uncomfortable when it comes to homelessness because those that are experiencing are in an uncomfortable situation. We need to deal with it urgently and in a much better way. So,
okay. Well, I know. Do you have any final words? Because I know you got to get going and everything else like that. But do you have
yeah,
any final words?
final words: love America's backbone. Love you, Tuck. Love your community, man. Really appreciate the opportunity to be part of it and wish you the best. And thanks for highlighting homeless entrepreneurs' work and the great walk.
Hey, thanks for coming on. Much appreciated. Okay, for those of you guys that are wanting to continue on past the interview, um, I've invited Andrew if he wants to sit and continue listening, he can, or he can go ahead. Okay, so he went ahead and went off. Okay, so I'm kind of curious. I want to hear your guys's input because I mean, there's not a lot of you that were here, for various reasons, probably because of how early it is in the morning. But I'm talking to homeless entrepreneur who happens to be in Europe. As you see, he was in Switzerland. He is going to represent the homeless community. Now, how did I come across homeless entrepreneur? Because you can actually find him. There's plenty of social media. Just capital H, capital E. You can find him on LinkedIn. You can find him on pretty much any social media platform. I found him. Actually, he found me because I was talking shit about another homeless entrepreneur that tried to make a YouTube career out of being a homeless entrepreneur. And I was like, dude was weak. Like after 6 months, he caved in and said, I got health issues. So, anyways, I was talking crap about that, and because he's got a search on anytime somebody talks about a homeless entrepreneur, he ends up reaching out to me, and that's kind of how this all started. So we've talked about how the homeless community is being affected. We're bringing news to you. I am your host, Professor Tuck, if I haven't introduced myself already. I wanted to make sure that we got this interview because it was very time sensitive. What we cover is we cover the homeless news. So if you're a bum, whether you're a home bum or a traveling bum, if you're a functional homeless individual, you're trying to figure out what's going on in the world and how you're being affected directly, because I mean, nobody cares about, tax write-offs on a house when you don't have one. They care about the issues that affect them. So this segment is directed towards you, the homeless preppers, the homeless individuals, the preppers, and those who think that they are going to be homeless. And so this episode and every live stream that I do is sponsored by Stephanie at openairproperties.net. Just want to remind you that if you are looking to go off grid, get your own land, kind of shore yourself up so that in case you lose everything else, you at least have a blank slate of land to go live on. You should definitely go over and check out Stephanie at openairproperties.net. Let her know that Friar Tuck sent you and you'll get $50 off of your deposit. She has land in Arizona, Colorado, and Arkansas. And not only that, it's all owner finance. I bought my land through her. I enjoy doing business with her. And, because of the positive feedback I got from the community, I asked her if she would be interested in a sponsor. And so therefore she sponsors this channel. And again, for open and honest disclosure, I have bought land from her and I do business with her on that level. And so, as someone who likes doing business with her, I want to tell you, my community, and my friends all about her. Okay, so the next segment that I want to talk about, because I think that this is becoming a big issue, and I think it's going to become a bigger issue as time goes along, which is, okay, so. Uh, we're not going to really talk about politics. Okay, let's just kind of call it what it is. We're in the process of going into a civil war. We're backsliding. Now, there's a segment that I watch that is very newsworthy that kind of helps me put together stuff for you, and it's called "The Wire" is the segment. And it's like S2 Underground is the channel name, and he did a segment where he was talking about a lot of the stuff that's leading up, and I'm coming to my own conclusions. I'm not letting his conclusions be my conclusions, but I do see validity in his argument when he was talking about Governor Tim Walz saying that we've never been at war with the federal government. Is that saying that we've never been at war in the sense that this is something new, or we've never been at war because we're not at war with the federal government? But then he talks about deploying troops and kind of pigeonholes himself into this thing. Now, as a homeless individual, this is going to affect you for many reasons, and this is what I'm going to get into in the segment. I just want to go piece by piece. So when you have open defiance between the states and the federal government. This is what started the first Civil War in 1861, and the first shots fired at Fort Sumter. Um, this is the beginning of that. But instead of it being Virginia, because usually Virginia is the source of every war that we've ever had, whether it be the American Revolution or any other war, Virginia is very influential in the overall politics of this country in that way. Um, so usually everybody looks at Virginia as where the Civil War is going to start here in America. Well, it may not necessarily start in Virginia. It might start in Minnesota. It might start in Oregon or California or in other places. But here's the main thing that you need to take from this is that once you start having the open defiance, that invites federal troops, that invites martial law, that invites, if you are sleeping outside, that means you may end up in a camp or some sort of thing like that as a way to keep the peace. Because what is the primary function of the federal government or any government in the world? It is to keep the peace, to maintain the control. Because as long as they are in control, because they have peace, things will be good. They can perpetuate their power. But once chaos ensues, once they lose control, once there's no longer peace, the stability of a government, therefore, weakens. And so when something like this happens, there's going to be a pushback from the federal government to assert its own control. So this is something that we need to be thoughtful of. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, if you're on the left or if you're on the right. You're a human being and you're an American and you live in this country, and nobody wants anything like this to happen. Okay, so with Governor Waltz saying what he said, I think that that is something that we as as Americans on the outside looking in should be very cautious of and kind of watch how that develops and watch his actions, because that may spark something. Okay, if you've noticed that over the last 5 years, all of the civil unrest that we have starts in Minnesota, whether it was the George Floyd protest, and now we've got the ICE protest. There's a lot of stuff that's going on. Minnesota is proving to be the epicenter of all of the discourse and the infighting between the left and the right and the sane and the insane. Um, that this is becoming its own little pressure situation. So this is something that, as an individual, you should definitely be thoughtful about. With that being said, we also have the other side of the story. Okay, so we hear and we see on the mainstream news that ICE is going in, whether you listen to one side or the other side of the news, because it's merely for entertainment purposes only now. There's no guarantee of dissemination of facts. Um, what this actually does is it really puts a lot of disinformation out there. There's no real information because opinion and portraying it as fact. And so on one side you say ICE is an occupying force, and in some ways I don't know if I agree, but I can see where people are coming from. Billy Meyer had actually made a prediction several years ago, and I thought it would have been in Trump's first administration, but apparently it's in this administration, where the military would be turned against the military and the police would be turned against the people. Now, I'm not necessarily sure if they're being turned against the people, because we are actually their mandate is to remove illegal immigrants, and there is a legal due process that they're supposed to go through. At least that's what they tell us, the public. Whether or not they follow it is completely different. Now, I've seen videos of ICE agents looking like fools, and I've seen videos of the other side looking like fools, because both sides are trying to show how the other one is trying to inflame the situation. In reality, both sides are wrong. Both sides have valid complaints, but the way in which they're going about it is kind of making it to a point where we, as a society, have to worry about our safety and stability, because one area could infect the rest of the country. Now, Antifa has been labeled as a terrorist organization, yes. But is the federal government doing anything about it? No. Part of the reason why the ICE agents are having their issues with these people and repeated is because they stop them as they're being tailed, and then they give them a warning, and then they keep giving them warnings. And that's kind of what happened in Minnesota, as that they'd given this girl several warnings throughout the day. You could even hear it in the way that she was talking, if you see the body cam footage, because she's like, yeah, you've already seen us, it's the same plate, we haven't changed it, therefore letting you know that this had been, or something repeated, because she already knew who she was dealing with. Now, from what I was really gathering from S2 Underground, because he really drives it home about how Antifa is almost like its own underground private militia. I think it's more organized than American militias, in the sense that they've got on the ground intelligence, they've got loosely fitted groups that are working together because they all have the same common goal, which is to essentially destroy America. Because there's been several people that are, I wouldn't call them whistleblowers, but they're former, CIA, NSA, stuff like that, that are actually going on alternative news like Redacted, and pointing out the fact that the tools that we used on the rest of the world starting in 2020 got turned inward and started used on the people. So all of the civil unrest and all of this stuff like this destabilization that we're seeing is the very same tools that our government has used on so many different countries in the world, whether it be Iran, which is where I think it was Teddy Roosevelt's grandson was the one that started the whole regime change in the 1950s by installing the Shah of Iran. Okay, so we've got this militant group that is highly organized. They're collecting intelligence, and they're doing battlefield tactics in a lot of ways. Yeah, Mitch, I completely agree with you. They were looking for trouble and they found it. But the thing is what they're trying to do, in the same way that this girl, okay, look at it this way. If I sit there and I poke the bear, okay, this is what bullies do on the schoolyard. We as people, we know this. We're totally hip to it, but yet we still, it's like we know it, but yet we're still gonna keep doing stupid. So we know that on the schoolyard, the bully always go doot 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 and pokes you until all of a sudden you go, "Arr!" and you retaliate. And then the bully goes, "Oh, look at me, I'm da 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 da," and plays the victim, and everybody comes to the bully's rescue and then chastises the person that actually retaliated, because they're like, you're supposed to turn the other cheek, which means that they don't actually know what turning the other cheek really means. Um, it's there's stuff that's happening, and Antifa is doing this so that they can get an incident like what happened with this girl, so that they can sit there and spin it and create civil unrest and give their local groups reason enough to gain hysteria to be able to fight against all of this. Okay, and so therefore this is in the same way when we went to Afghanistan and we took out and we invaded, we created more terrorists than we saved. In the same thing, that's the same thing that's going on here, but we're doing it homegrown wise, and we don't even realize it. The same playbook that was used on us in the rest of the world when we went and we put boots on the ground is being used on us here at home by these militant groups such as Antifa. But don't just sit there and say that Antifa, oh, it's just a left wing group. No, because the right wing, there's two extremes on this, and both extremes are wrong. It's in the middle is where everything should be, because there be a balance between both. Okay, that's I think honestly that's the lesson that we as people need to come through, to get through with. But I see that a lot of things are starting to go out of control. They're talking about gold. If it hasn't already hit $5,000, it's gonna hit $5,000. Silver's already over $100. I don't know if it's dropped below $100. I've kind of been doing some other things over the last few days, but even economically, we've got too many pressures. And when people can't eat, when they can't work, when they can't pay for a roof over their head, they are going to be out in the streets. They're not going to be out in the streets because the shops are empty. They're going to be out in the in the streets because they don't have money to go to the shops to get their food. I don't think that the shops will be empty. I think that the people will not be able to afford it, and at that point in time, just like what we see going on in Iran, the people are low on water because it's a basic day-to-day resource that they need. Therefore they're out in the streets in protest over water. Okay, so the thing is it's not necessarily that we're going to run out of food. I think it's more or less that nobody will be able to afford food. Okay, and so these are some things that I think that are really going to spark it. If you're a homeless person, you should definitely be aware. If you're a homeless person, you should probably consider, like, if something like this happens, have your own bug out plan. As a homeless person, you are more mobile, more agile than the average housed individual who is tied to four walls and tied to certain amenities. As a homeless person, you have a greater ability to be mobile, and you should use that to your advantage when it comes to situations like this. Because if the federal government does move in, that means that you are in more danger as a homeless individual. And this is something that you should definitely be weary and be thoughtful of. Okay, so we're going to go into our final segment before we go into an open Q&A. If you guys want to join in that. Hey, if you like the channel, if you like what I'm doing, if you like this new direction that I'm going, well, it's the same direction, just reformatting it into something more palatable. Consider getting a membership either here on YouTube or over on Patreon. It supports the broadcast, because eventually what I would like to do is start doing on the ground reporting for you guys. So that is that. If you guys would like to support the channel, that is something that you guys can do. Now, let's move into our final segment, which is we're going to talk about things that are going on state by state around the country. So, if you're homeless, about to be homeless, or living mobile, this section is definitely for you. So, in California, especially in San Francisco, the city continues offering one-way relocation tickets to homeless residents. Now, as someone who's been there and experienced that, what that's called is the Homeward Bound program. In order to be able to be successful with the Homeward Bound program, you have to have somebody waiting on the other end. They're not just going to bus you to another city to be homeless. They're going to bus you to somewhere that can help you, like bus you to a family members or something like that. It's more meant for people who are stranded, but if they had the ability to get to another area, they would actually have stable housing. This is California's way of not only getting rid of the homeless, but also, kind of combating it in its own way. So fewer people are taking them, mostly because leaving your support network often makes things worse, not better. But it's not even about that. It's more or less, do you have somebody waiting for you on the other side? So in Hawaii, if you are in Maui, if you're one of the wildfire survivors, you may lose FEMA rental assistance as early as next month, and it could push hundreds, if not thousands, of people homeless overnight because they can no longer survive. I know that that was a really bad wildfire, and if you're in Hawaii, you probably know more than most of us, and how that's detrimental. But you know, it is what it is. My heart goes out to you. I hope that this works out. But you know, you got to be the squeaky wheel. Because the thing is those of us that are getting affected, we just take it and roll over because we think nobody gives a shit anyways. But if you're a squeaky wheel, you know, people will listen eventually. So if you're newly homeless in a smaller city, churches are often your fastest entry point. So in Maine, Bangor city leaders have made homelessness a priority for 2026. So their planning department and everything else like that, they came together. They said, "Look, we want to focus on combating homelessness." I do not know how big Bangor is, but I know that Maine is a very lightly populated state, so the fact that that they're doing this, it says, I don't know. I would definitely keep an eye on it, and I would definitely start. I'm going to try and keep an eye on the policies that they're doing there in Bangor. So in Ohio, Cleveland opened a new winter shelter, 30 degrees and things like that. So just because they're opening up a winter shelter doesn't mean that it's going to necessarily help the homeless long term, but it will at least help them survive the winter. So that is still a positive thing in some ways. So in Portland, Oregon, my my old stomping grounds, Portland is enforcing a 120-day limit on alternative shelters. So I know in Covington, Kentucky, they did something like this, and what it means is that you're only allowed to stay for 120 consecutive nights, and then you have to take anywhere from 1 week to 30 days off, and 2 weeks back and forth and back and forth. And so Portland is trying to do something like this with a 120-day limit on shelters, and people may be forced into emergency shelters or out of the way systems entirely. So if you rely on long-term shelter programs in Portland, check your timelines. Enforcement is increasing. Okay, in Rhode Island, advocates protested shelter conditions and lack of warming centers. Um, I'm kind of learning a little bit about this. This isn't a big like a big blot on the news. It's just kind of like a little blurb. Of, hey, by the way, this happened. So I mean, if the homeless community is to a point where they're rioting, um, uh, oh wait, hold on. In Rhode Island, advocates protested shelter conditions. Okay, so sorry, the advocates. But the thing is they're just trying to get more money. I get it. I get why it's happening, but unless you see the homeless up in arms, I wouldn't really look at it. The fact that advocates are doing it, it might just be a fundraising ploy. So in Virginia, community groups are stepping in with winter supply drives to support shelters strained by cold weather. It doesn't matter where you're at in the country. There are whether you're getting flooded on the west coast or whether you're getting the northeast, the blizzards in the northeast, or you're getting really wacky weather. It's always important to, if you've got extra gear or if you've got like an extra coat or something like that, that goes a long way for the homeless community. So a national update: nationwide major federal homelessness funding overhaul has been paused by court order. We talked about that last week. Okay, right now, like I told you, it was more of a procedural thing. It had nothing to do with the merits of the case. It was more of a procedural reason on why they turned it down. So Homelessness doesn't start on the street. It starts when systems break and trust collapse. Homeless entrepreneur pointed out, we are the silent majority because all you get to see, and for a long time, because the thing is, when you're functional, like when you got a job and stuff like that, you may hear people, but some of the functional homeless are just like, you hear about it, but it doesn't register because you see everybody else sleeping out on the street corner. You don't realize, you don't think about it unless you're in that community, but then you still don't realize like how big the community really is, because in a lot of ways we try and look like we're not homeless. We try and blend in. We are getting jobs, so we're not out there, in the face of services and stuff like that. The functional homeless community is the most underserved and the one that could benefit. And not only that, if you were to start focusing on the functional homeless community, I think that homelessness itself would become non-existent or something of the past. So let's get to some of your questions. Um, so I see that Mitch. Oh wait. Puritan principle of pain. Okay, if you're talking about homeless survival again, we subscribe to hear this stuff. Not complaining about Trump. Okay, well that's understandable. I'm not complaining about Trump. I complain about the government. Those of you, if you actually subscribe Puritan and you've been here for a while, you'd know I hate both parties. And yeah, I'm pretty much right on pat. So glad to see that you're back. It sounds like I should be expecting my numbers and everything else to go up, which will be an indicator that I'm doing the right thing. Now, I keep changing the formats to kind of give you guys, to give you guys. A different variety to see which ones you like. So I've done a live interview segment followed by news. I've done a just a live news segment. I have there's a reason why I do the AI explainer videos. It's going to go on my website and stuff like that once I get time. There's a big update that's going to be coming up with me towards the beginning of next month, end of next month. Uh, for me, as far as my housing situation, I'm just because you get off doesn't mean you feel stable. It just means that you got a safe place to sleep for night. It takes a while before you actually feel like, okay, I can take a deep breath, and then start building your life out because you feel confident enough, and you've had the place long enough, so on and so forth. So I'm now doing my next step up, which is uh I'm going to be getting my own apartment. But the thing is I'm going to be going into one of these subsidized housing. Now here in Maryville, they have something very different that they deal with homeless. I think that this place is more about the functional homeless. If you've got a job, if you've got some sort of resources, they will get you some sort of housing. I think I because I'm just kind of starting to get to know this place. I think I'm gonna do an interview with Autumn House here in Maryville, because like if you're gonna be homeless, if you're about to lose your place, if you need some assistance, you go there and they'll even put you to the top of the waiting list and you'll have a place. Now Maryville's a small town. I think this would be harder everything because I got Sam. I've got her medication. I've got her food, and then I've got other things that I got to for. I got all these different things that I got to get for Sam. And then, I got food, and then I got my stuff I got to get. Plus, now I'm paying for medical insurance because I want to go get a lot of this medical stuff done and stuff like that. And see, this is the difference between the functional homeless and the not so functional homeless. See, the functional homeless are going to go out there and they're going to go get this stuff for themselves to begin with. They don't need somebody to come and say, "Here, would you like this? Here, would you like this? Here's a free service. Here, here, here." Because when you're outside, most of the services approach you, but when you're not able to partake like everybody else, you've got to approach the services that you want. So because of the Affordable Care Act, even though the subsidies and stuff like that, I now have, even though I'm paying $50 a month, I now have health insurance that I can now go to the doctor. I just had to get some prescriptions, and luckily, I didn't have to pay anything for my prescriptions. And usually that was a hard thing for me to deal with. Plus, every time you go to the doctor, the cost of that and stuff like that. Like, I've got some health issues I want to get addressed and get on paper, because it's going to benefit me later on in life having that diagnosis. Okay. Also, things like the subsidized housing. But for the most person, for the average person, what ends up happening is you've got two choices. Either you have a job and you're able to pay for the services at a subsidized level, which is good if you're that far along. But sometimes what ends up putting you homeless is an economic issue, and in that economic issue, when you first start off, you still need all of those services. And you still need, a subsidized housing. You still need, you still need food. You still need your medical insurance. You still need all those things, but you can't afford it. And so you either go without while you go and hunt for a job until you finally get so wore down that you get stuck in the system, and then you just slowly degrade and join over there, or you manage to get yourself up or find some of these diamond services. And I think that there are services throughout the country that are good, but there are very few of them, and you kind of got to get lucky in where you go. I'm lucky being here in Maryville. I would have never found a place like this anywhere else that would have actually allowed me to be able to continue, because I like my job. I don't want to leave it. And if I have to leave my job for more money, I'd rather just go walk a street corner myself. But anyways, this is Bum News, your Bum News segment today. If any of you guys have any questions, go ahead and say and ask them. Puritan, I'm glad to see you. Mitch, glad to see you. I hope that you guys enjoyed the interview today with homeless entrepreneur. After he is done with Davos, I am going to see if I can get one more interview with him to see what we're doing. But you'll probably see him on here regularly, just because I've been partnered with him for, God, almost 2 years now. And it's just I've always, like, because of the service he offers. If you guys have heard me in previous broadcasts over the years, I have recommended, hey, if you're looking to either start a business and create some sort of stable foundation for yourself that way, or if you just need the tools to be able to move up in your career field and you want some assistance that will take you from being poor to being not so poor. Those are the two main rails that he focuses on: those that want to be entrepreneurs and those that want to be entrepreneurial within their job. So if you want to move up into management and stuff like that, so instead of giving you money, what he does is he gives you direct contact to industry leaders. So I've had a chance to talk to industry leaders in certain things that I needed assistance with. And instead of saying, here's money, or just trying to do it themselves, they say, here's a guy, have a talk with him, because they're volunteering their time, not their money. And so therefore the average cost, so to be able to fund all the services that he provides for me, per individual, the lifespan in homeless entrepreneur, to get them from on the streets to off the streets to stable and functional, because they don't just worry about, okay, we got you and now you're off the streets and they leave you go. No, he actually follows you along, and that's why he continues to follow me along. Okay, so this is from beginning to end. He told me that just funding for me costs $3,000 for the whole program, the everything that I need. So $3,000 for an individual, when we're spending $500,000 per individual, sounds so much better. But the thing is these programs and services are available to those that are like me, that still have the drive, that still have the functionality, that don't want to sit there and wallow, but want to actually pull themselves up by their bootstraps and just put their best face forward. And but the thing is programs like these are hard to find, and so I'm kind of hoping to bring these to you in the future. I would strongly recommend that if you are interested in doing something like that, you should definitely reach out to Homeless Entrepreneur. That's why I bring him on. That's why I talk about him on a regular basis. So I'm going to say thank you guys for being here. I hope you enjoyed the broadcast. If you have any feedback, please let me know down in the comments. Thanks for being here, and I will see you sometime next week.